Welcome back to an episode of Clutch Gene Sports Faithful. Eventful Thursday night. Not how everyone wanted the 49ers to go out on a Thursday night, especially to start the weekend. 49ers lose to the Los Angeles Rams 12-6 on Thursday Night Football. Essentially ends their season in terms of making the playoffs and going on a run. Niners are pretty much out. There's no other way to put it. Their chances are like 0.1% to make the playoffs. It's not happening. Let's be real. It's not going to happen. Now, a lot of things happen. We could talk about the offense, defense, whatever, throughout the season and stuff like that. But yesterday's game was essentially a weird game, right? You get Dre Greenlaw back. Defense looks energetic. They're playing great. Matthew Stafford is having a bad game. And as he's having this bad game, I'm texting a couple of buddies of mine. I'm like, dude, Niners have to capitalize here. If they do not capitalize, the Rams offense isn't going to stay playing like shit. Like, they have a good quarterback over there. This is not going to be something that they do. So then I'm asking and asking them what do they think of the game, blah, blah, blah. This was a terrible way to go out for the offense. Holding the Rams to 12 points was phenomenal. As Kenny 49ers says, it was great. And I don't necessarily know if the rain stopping helped or didn't help the Niners. I think it benefited both teams, right? Because obviously we see Brock Purdy in the rain. He struggled in the rain. So when the rain stops, it causes for Matthew Stafford to not play in the rain. It also has Brock Purdy not playing in the rain, which we know Brock is better at not playing in the rain. So before we even get into anything, I got to talk about De'Vondre Campbell. That's some sucker shit. Just like Travarius Ward said, that's some sucker shit. I've never seen somebody do that outside of Vontae Davis, who retired at halftime. But at least he waited till half. Like, hey, I'm not going back out. I'm done for the game. Retire that way. But not going into the game when a coach tells you, hey, it's your turn. That's some straight weirdo shit. Like, especially when you suited up with these guys for 12 straight games. You started alongside a lot of these guys. And then you're called on and you're like, nah, I'm cool. Peace out. I'm headed to the locker room. Like, what? What? Like, to me, that was pathetic. That was loser mentality. Like, that's straight loser mentality. It pissed me off when I heard of that, when I found out that is just pathetic. And it led me to create the title, right? Like, is there drama brewing in that locker room? Is there something in that locker room that's going on? I know Mike Silver's talked about the 49ers locker room isn't in great shape in an article before recently. He's essentially said that he doesn't think the Niners locker room is as healthy as people think it is and stuff like that a couple of weeks ago. And he's mentioned like some things. But man, I don't think that's the case at all with the Niners locker room. I think De'Vondre Campbell was essentially trying to get out of playing for the 49ers to get to a playoff team to try to go chase the Super Bowl. That was his goal of coming to the Niners and why he eventually came to the Niners when he was the Niners. The Niners didn't really want to sign him. They wanted Eric Hendricks. They ended up having to settle for De'Vondre Campbell. I thought it was a terrible signing then. Thought it was a terrible signing mid-season. Still think it's a terrible signing. So let your young players play. They decide not to let them play and have De'Vondre Campbell. Weird ass thing. Like, who just does it? Who walks off the field? Glad he's not going to be on the team. Now, the Niners are not sure if they're going to cut him or what they're going to do. What their plan is you could do two different things, right? You could essentially suspend him the remainder of the season, which I'm all for. He'll be suspended by the Niners, probably fined, but it allows him to not go and chase a ring. Because if he gets cut and a team desperately needs a linebacker during the playoffs or right end of the season, he could go sign on with them. They have not cut him. Matt Niner diehard. They have not cut him yet. So they could essentially suspend him. And if you suspend him, it prevents him from ring chasing. I think that's a pretty good idea. And shout out to Bonta Hill and Joe Chasky. Um, they talked about it. My guy Steven on Twitter tweeted out what he had heard from them saying. I think that's the best route. Fine him and suspend him. If you cut him, great. Now he gets to go. He gets what he wanted. He gets cut. Now he gets to go play for another team. And I get Kenny. Some teams aren't going to want him, right? They're going to be like, hey, no, he quit on his team. We don't want that around our team. But when you're so desperate for a linebacker or so desperate for a player, you're willing to take that on because you're a playoff caliber team. You're expecting him to come in and want to compete and want to play. And obviously he did it because he wanted to get out and he wanted to be on a playoff team. So allowing him to freely leave gives him what he wants. Since you told the 49ers and their players F you in that situation last night in the third quarter when they called your name to go into the game, the Niners should say F you back. Suspend you. You cannot go play on another team. Once that happens, everything that he did last night makes him look even worse. Because now he did this to be suspended and not be on the playoff team. He wanted to be cut. That's why he did it. He knew what the repercussion was, is getting cut and then trying to find a new team. That's what he wanted. Well, guess what? Give him the double bird and say, well, you're suspended. Now you're fined. Enjoy your suspension for the rest of the year. You cannot go sign on the team. I like how the 49ers players handled it. I love how Demo went out publicly. I love how Travis Ward publicly said something. George Kittle said he never wants to play with anyone like that and he hopes no one's ever on his team that it has that mentality. Get that dude off get him off from around the player. That's the main part. I love how Kyle Shanahan approached it. Said, you know what? I'm done talking to him. He's no longer on this team. I thought that was very good by everyone, the unity of the team, and that's why I think there is no drama brewing in that locker room. I think the unity of the team coming together and saying we don't want anyone like that was crazy. It was drastic, right? It was a big thing to happen last night. Steve-O says I defended Campbell all year. That mother effer. Do you talk about Deebo Samuel next, right? And I know a lot of people were, man, he got booed. I haven't heard a Niner player get booed since. I think Jimmy Garoppolo, maybe the offense has probably gotten booed after Jimmy Garoppolo, maybe before that. But I haven't heard a player get booed that loud. Like watching the game from home, you could hear how loud it was. And I was just in shock. Like, wow. Like I was not expecting for the situation to happen, how it played out, right? Has an opportunity, drops a pass that would have been a touchdown, probably walks in. Once that happens, it's like, damn. What do you say to a player in that situation as a teammate who publicly went to the media and said, I'm not struggling. I just don't get the ball. Complained about it, right? Like complained. And on top of that, told another teammate to lock in and slapped another teammate. Like, what do you tell him? Like, and then I love that Kittle went up to him after the game and said, this is where you take ownership. You take accountability because you asked for this. You asked for the ball and you didn't show up. That's great leadership by George Kittle. Deebo Samuel most likely not on the team next year. That's my prediction. I don't see how the Niners run it back with him. Essentially became a diva. I mean, we know he was when he did that contract, when his contract stuff. It's interesting. This is kind of a funny comment. This is why you don't touch kickers. The yips are contagious. For me, I think at the end of the day, Deebo, with what Deebo did, was uncaptain-like. If I was the 49ers, when he had slapped or punched, whatever we want to call it, when he put his hands on the long snapper, Tabor Pepper, I think that would have been my opportunity to take his patch away, his captain patch. You don't act like that with any of your teammates, the kicker, punter, I don't care who it is. It could be a practice squad player, he's your teammate. End of the day, you're not putting hands on them. We're all grown men here. I would have, as a head coach, organization, I would have took that C off his chest. I would have gave it to Denominal Lenore. That's a captain. Someone who speaks with his play. Debo essentially put the writing on the wall for himself. Like the way he was getting booed. The Oregon fans are turning on him because of how he acted. Tough way to go out for Debo. I will get to this later at the end of the show. Just want to talk about a little bit Niners real quick, and then I'll get to this, and then I'll also get to any questions. If you guys want me to guarantee to answer a question, you guys can go ahead and drop a super chat, and I'll guarantee to answer it. Let's talk a little bit about Brock Purdy. A lot of you know, if you've been tuned into the show, if you've been watching the show, following along with me, whether it's on Twitter, the show, anyone else show I've ever been on, you guys know that I've always been not necessarily, I know people like to call it a Brock hater or whatever. I get it. I've been critical of Brock. I critique Brock because I think he's a good quarterback, not great, and people have compared him to elite quarterbacks, or they said he's elite, or he's a top 5 quarterback, and that's where I've had the debate, right? Like where that makes me look like a hater because they're comparing him to last year. People were saying number 1 is Patrick Mahomes, number 2 is Brock Purdy. Like that to me that's all right. We're going to hold him to that elite status, the elite range. Then let's evaluate him as an elite quarterback. I think if that's a pretty fair thing to do. If we're going to put him at number 2 behind Patrick Mahomes, some people had him at number 1 last year, 49er fans at least. I think it's a very valid argument to do and hold him to a standard. The standard is elite play. He's not elite. I've always said he's a really good quarterback who's not good enough. He struggles in weather climates that make the ball slippery, whether it's the rain, the snow, whatever we want to call it. Playing at an elite level doesn't make you an elite quarterback. Let's say that again. Playing at an elite level doesn't make you an elite quarterback. If that is the case, we're going off of this logic. And I'm not saying, Kenny, I'm not saying you're calling Brock elite. But if that's the case, Sam Darnold is an elite quarterback right now. Sam Darnold is elite. I don't see that. I don't think Sam Darnold is elite. So I'm not going to say an MVP just because you played on the MVP or an elite level season. Because I know you said the MVP convo. I don't see that. As soon as I saw that, I instantly roasted his ass. Which part, Sentinel? Don't know which part you're talking about or who you're talking about. I'm elite from head of my feet, from my head to my feet. That's funny. Jared says Purdy needs to play in a dome and against zone defense. That's the issue, right? Like playing in controlled weather in a dome against zone defenses. When you go man against him, or you go cover 2 or cover 4, you play those kind of coverages. You make windows tighter. They're harder to make. He doesn't have the physical traits to make these kind of throws. But let's just talk about yesterday. The offense puts up 6 points. Week before, he plays at really has a hell of a game against the Bears. Niners dice him up. Everything's wide ass open. Right? Same players he played with on Sunday, he played with on Thursday. So saying that they can't get open is a false narrative because they did it last week and they put up 30 plus points. So then watching the 49ers yesterday against the Rams, Brock missed a few opportunities to put up points. Early in the game, George Kittle deep underthrows him, where Cam Curl potentially there's pass interference there, but you underthrow him. Now you're asking for the ref to throw a flag when good coverage ends up being good coverage because you underthrow him. 2, the Ricky Pearsall throw. He underthrows Ricky Pearsall deep, would have been a touchdown. That's 2 touchdowns he underthrows, potentially. Later in the game, he has a throw down the seam to Deebo Samuel, Kitchens or whatever his name is from the Rams, almost intercepts it. That's underthrown. People are like, oh, it was just a great group. No, it's underthrown. Put the ball out in front. It's a touchdown, probably. Not a touchdown because Deebo probably gets caught, but it's a big play. And then on the game-stealing interception that he throws, it's predetermined. And this is something that Brock has been an issue this year. Brock's best attribute is his mind, his IQ, the game, his processing skills. But this year, his processing skills have not been there. So when you look at it, if your processing skills aren't there and your physical traits aren't there, what are you bringing to the table that makes you want to get paid a very high dollar? There's nothing there, right? Like then I shouldn't say there's nothing there, but you can't argue when both are gone. It's not good quarterback play. When his processing ability is there, it's really good quarterback play, even with the limited physical attributes. The issue is we've seen what it looks like when things are perfect on offense, when you have a great running back, great receivers, great tight end. This year has been a little down. It's still better than what a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL have right now. And he's playing worse than a lot of quarterbacks right now. Let's go ahead and get to some of these. Shout out to you, Niner gang. Question. If Sam Darnold is elite on the Vikings and Kyle Shanahan's system is quarterback friendly, why is there a significant drop off in Brock Purdy's ability? And what do you mean by significant drop off? Because for me, when I read this, I think from Brock Purdy to a backup quarterback. Sam Darnold is a starting level quarterback in the league. Doesn't mean he's a great quarterback or a top 15, but he's starting level. He has starting level traits. So when you put a starting level quarterback in a similar system where things are wide open, and he has Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, it's going to look good. That's why right now I think Sam Darnold's playing good. If you put Sam Darnold in the Niners offense, I think it will look good. I don't think it'll look great. I think it'll look just as good as if not better than Brock Purdy because he has extra talent to make throws. He might hit that George Kittle throw. He might hit that Ricky Pearsall throw. He has the talent to do those. So when we're looking at that, those are attributes that Brock physically can't do because he doesn't have the arm strength to do, and the ball tends to float on him. So Sam Darnold has the ability to make those throws. So I think that's the difference from going from a starting level quarterback to a backup. If you go from a starting level to a starting level, it's not going to be a drastic drop off. And I think that's why Kyle Shanahan wanted 2 starting level quarterbacks last year because he didn't know how Brock was going to recover. So the question is going to be throughout the offseason and moving forward the next couple of weeks is how much do the Niners pay him? Because they're bound to pay him, man. It's one of those ones where as a fan or someone who's watching and evaluating things that are going on, I don't think you should pay him this offseason. I think you should wait. I'd rather pay him an extra $5 to $10 million guaranteed next offseason. But I'm 100% sure that he's the answer, that he is that quarterback that's elite level play, rather than give him a bunch of money and not know. Just like when the Niners extended Jimmy Garoppolo. I said do not extend him after the 5 games. I said put a franchise tag on him, make him play out the full year. If he's good enough, then you pay him. You don't got it. And I like to be pro player, but from the organizational standpoint, I understand doing that. I want Brock to get paid. Of course I do. But organizationally, that's what they should do. So basically, Brock is the best of the shitty QBs, or not even. No, I think he's a starting level quarterback. I'm not saying he's shitty at all. I think there's tiers to quarterback play. You got your elite quarterbacks. You got your very good quarterbacks who have traits and have physical attributes to make them elite, but they don't got the IQ. Some, at least for some of them are just really, really good, and they're never going to be anything better because they just like to play on the risky side. Then you got the good quarterbacks, below average, and then from there, like those are guys you don't really want on your team, right? Like that's essentially how I see it. It's interesting because with Brock, we argue was last year the talent, whatever. Doesn't matter anymore. We have enough film on him to know what he is. Can they just see Brock's market rate is? They can't this offseason. Good question. They can't this offseason. He's still under contract, third year. He'll be on his fourth year, final year of his contract. So they can't let him test free agency this year. Essentially, they would have to wait until the following year. And at that point, you could let him test free agency, but they're not going to risk not having a quarterback because if another team offers them something drastic, the Niners can't match it. He would be an unrestricted free agent. He gets to go wherever he wants. At that point, he dictates things. He may feel the Niners did me dirty. They didn't give me a contract extension. I don't want to play for them. Let me connect my charger because I realize it's not charging my laptop. So essentially, he could leave. So what the Niners would have to do is place a franchise tag on him after next season. If they decided they could tag twice, it's usually the top 5 quarterbacks money divided by something or something like that. Like there's like a number set that he would have. So for me, I think that's the biggest thing we're looking at right now. It's moving forward. Is Brock the answer? Now, I want to talk a little bit about the 49ers locker room because a lot of people are going to say the 49ers locker room has issues or the locker room is falling apart or Kyle's losing the locker room. And I'm not saying like anyone in particular is going to say this, but I know fans tend to have this argument that Kyle needs to be fired, right? I don't think Kyle's lost his locker room at all. I know De'Vondre Campbell walked off the field, but I think that was a De'Vondre Campbell issue. I don't think it was a Kyle Shanahan losing his locker room issue. We saw the team come out and fight the last 2 weeks, come out and play. That tells me he still has his locker room intact. It tells me that there's energy in there, especially the way they responded to De'Vondre Campbell situation. We had guys literally saying, "Get him the F off my team." That's not what we want on our team. That tells me Kyle Shanahan has not lost his locker room. The moment you have players not wanting to talk to media outside of Debo, right? Debo's having his own personal issues this season, and I think it's more so because it's a contract year for him. Usually, you see players act that way, but you still have guys like Trent Williams and Charvarius Ward who could have said, I'm done for the year. We're not having a good year. Family life situation is tragic. We're going to step away. They didn't. They came back because they respect their teammates. They respect Kyle Shanahan. They respect the locker room. Shout out to those guys. You got Fred Warner, who's still playing on he played on a broken ankle or broken foot all year. Captain right there tells me the locker room. Demo becoming very vocal. Kyle Shanahan is giving him that leadership role and asking him to take on that leadership role, and he's doing it, and the players are responding to Demo's leadership role. Kyle's doing a good job of that locker room, in my opinion. I think at the end of the day, you got to look at how some players respond and some players don't, or who's responding and who's not, who's causing a drift in the locker room. But I think at some point, Kyle needs to reflect on what's going on. And I think that's where you have to get rid of veterans this year. Shout out to you, Jesse. What up, my guy? Make sure you guys are subscribed to Last Second Sports. Shout out to Jesse. But I think this is where Kyle Shanahan this offseason and the 49ers need to address their locker room. Guys like Deebo Samuel. I don't want him around young players as I'm retooling or rebuilding. He's obviously shown no leadership. He's shown it's me. Get him off the field. Get him out of that locker room. Juice. Good guy in the locker room, but he's not doing much for you on the field. Get him gone. Javon Hargrave. Let him walk. Obviously, they're letting De'Vondre Campbell walk, or they're going to suspend him. Other guys that you look around, a few veterans, and those are the main veterans I would get rid of. I would try to bring Dre Greenlaw back. I would try to bring Huff back. Those are leaders. Those go a long way on a football field, especially in a locker room. Right now, Niners locker room's fine. Moving forward, I'll be monitoring that, kind of watching to see how it goes. I disagree. I think Kyle has leadership skills and people skills. I think Kyle Shanahan has a lack of media skills, a lack of being in front of people and answering question skills. And that's different than having leadership and people skills, because when the camera comes on, it's different. You're being evaluated at every point. Any answer you give, it's being evaluated. Versus if Kyle's in person with his boys or in the locker room and he's talking to a player, much different than being behind the podium and answering a question. I think that's two different things. And I think Kyle does have the leadership ability. I just think he doesn't have the ability to be in front of a camera like other coaches to show that leadership role. And I think that comes off, and it comes off a negative way. Versus Mike Tomlin gets behind the podium, and he wins you. He makes you want to run through the brick wall, because of how he speaks at the podium. Two different ways coaches approach the podium. Bill Belichick, the Belichick way. If you were to just go off of Bill Belichick, and I'm not comparing Kyle to any of these coaches, I'm just comparing how they are at the podium. If we were to bring Kyle and Bill Belichick at the podium, we would think Bill Belichick was the worst coach in terms of leadership. A lot of players love playing for him. He was a leader. They won games because he was a leader. So I don't necessarily think that Kyle's not a leader or has that leadership role. This is a good point. Mitchell S says, anyone thinking this team will change next year is clueless. The team's not going to change. The team is not going to change in the sense of they're not going to be contenders. They're going to change in terms of player personnel on the field and who is on the field. I think that will change. I think we'll have new defensive tackles, possibly a new corner, new offensive lineman. Deebo will probably be gone. But I don't think they're going to be a different team in terms of being a contender. That's just my opinion. But I do think the team will change to some degree. Every year you see turnover. Now, Kyle Shanahan. What the F kind of game plan was that to start the game? That was some bullshit-ass game plan to start. Deebo had the first 5 out of 9 touches for like 8 yards. What are we doing? 3rd and 6, running the ball with Deebo Samuel out of the backfield. Like, what are we doing? To me, that was crucial moments. Crucial situation, and you're leaning on Deebo. Now, Kyle has done this in the past, where when the season is back against the wall, it's Deebo's time. He's done that in the past. He did it against the Bears a couple of years ago. He did it against Dallas. He puts the ball in Deebo's hands. He's done that. The issue is Kyle Shanahan needs to understand that Deebo is not Deebo Samuel anymore. Deebo is not Deebo anymore. He's not. He's no longer explosive, and we can see it. Fans can see it. Kyle, you need to be able to realize and observe that your player is no longer himself. That was a big issue for me to start the game. After that, I thought Kyle called a pretty good game in the sense of we had guys open. Shout out to Ashley. Hopefully we record soon. podcast partner. Make sure you guys are subscribed to her channel. I thought Kyle Shanahan 6 points is big no. That's an F grade for the offensive coordinator. Big that to me. I'm giving you an F, Kyle, as the offense coordinator, as the head coach. I thought you were solid by benching De'Vondre Campbell for the winners, letting Evan Anderson play, starting Malik Mustafa. Or no, not started. Sorry, Malik Mustafa didn't play, but the week before. So like just stuff like that. Like what I'm looking at is Kyle's the head coach. Kyle the head coach playing Renardo Green a lot. That to me, those to me are signs. I saw a couple of Jacob Cowing reps, running routes, got the ball to Ricky Pearsall, dialed some stuff up for Ricky Pearsall. Those to me, those are positives for Kyle Shanahan. Yeah, your offense scoring 6 points, that's a straight F. That's fucking felon. Big time. Anyone knows that's big time felon. But I got to give credit to Kyle where it's due. He's stuck by side Nick Sorensen. The last 2 weeks, Nick Sorensen's looked really, really good. Shout out to Kyle. He's giving Nick Sorensen the courage, the ability, the confidence week in, week out. The last 2 weeks, defensive game plans were phenomenal. That's a credit to Kyle. He stuck by his defensive coordinator. He did it with Robert Saleh. Doing it with Nick Sorensen. That's shout out to Kyle for that. Most coaches would have fired Nick Sorensen by now. The last 2 weeks, defense has looked really, really good. Jalen Moore playing really well. But besides that, Kyle, the head coach, I thought was solid in terms of defense, special teams. That was solid. Kyle, the offense coordinator, who runs the offense, that was a fucking F. But I also connected with Brock. There was shit open. Debo didn't execute. Dropped the wide ass open pass, would have been a touchdown. George Kittle, wide ass open deep, underthrown. Ricky Pearsall, wide open, underthrown. Debo Samuel again, he was open on a seam route, underthrown. At the end of the day, a coach can call a play, but if it's not executed and things are open, that's on the players. I can't blame a coach for calling something, it working, things are open, and the quarterback not being able to do it or the receivers dropping these passes. So for me, that's a personnel issue, but guess what? A personnel issue is also Kyle's fault. Kyle, you're the one playing Debo Samuel. That route could have been called for Jawan Jennings or a Jacob Cowing or a Ricky Pearsall or George Kittle. So it is on you too. So that's why for me, Kyle, the offensive coordinator, F. Positives moving forward. Charvarius Ward's been playing well. Can we keep Ward? I know Kenny asked this earlier. This is a positive. Charvarius Ward has played well, in my opinion. People like to criticize him for whatever plays or whatever. The touchdown, the big play given up wasn't on him. That's on Tashawn Gibson. You're in a deep third. Tashawn Gibson comes down, gives up the over top. Charvarius Ward thinks he has help over the top because of Gibson. Doesn't. Gives a big play. People blame Ward. That's not on Ward. For me, positives are Dominic Puny, even though he had a bad game. Moving forward, right? The positives moving forward. Actually, before we talk about some positives, let's get to some of these comments. Last time I checked, Niners didn't give up a touchdown. Don't know what you're talking about. Niners didn't give up a touchdown. They got 12 points. They got 4 field goals. Have a good one. Glad you left. I don't know when to give up a touchdown. Do you think Ayuk is going to play like Debo? That has already been the case with Debo. Play like Debo? No, I don't think he'll ever play like Debo because that's not his skill set. Now, getting healthy, hopefully he's healthy. if he's not healthy, then don't know how it's gonna look. Does he still have his explosiveness? I think that's what you may be talking about. But if he still has explosiveness, not Debo because he's a route runner. And I think even if he does lose explosiveness, I think at worst he'll be a Jawan Jennings type, a good route runner who can get open. So I don't necessarily think it'll be as bad. It won't be as fast of a downfall. Stevo says, even if the route is called for someone else, doesn't mean it's a different result, we assume. No, it's not a different result, but you're putting a player who's playing well, or at least giving someone an opportunity who deserves that opportunity. Ricky Pearsall, with his opportunities, he's done well. Jawan Jennings' opportunities has showed out. Those are guys, when they're given their opportunity, they've actually stepped up. Deebo Samuel has not. The trenches are still an issue. They are an issue, I agree. But there's some positives going from the trenches. So we look at the 49ers defense. I think Yetur Gross-Matos is a positive moving forward. I think he's under contract for next year as well. I thought Leonard Floyd has been a positive. Now, don't let Yetur Gross-Matos try to stop the run, please. Please don't let him try to stop the run because it's ugly. And I said that when they ended up getting him, signing him. It's not nice. It's not good. Yeah, he's under contract next year. They have an out next year if they wanted to cut him. For Yetur Gross-Matos, they would save post June 1st. They save $8 million. They eat 1.6 and 25 and 26. They eat 4.9. He's likely on the team because he only has a $9.9 million dead cap. Evan Anderson is a big win for the 49ers right now. Along the defensive line. But I do agree with you. The trenches are bad. Puny is a positive in the trenches. Jalen Moore is a positive. Colton McKivitz is a positive. He's played a lot better this year. He has not been given the credit that he deserves. He's playing like a starting level tackle. This is a good one. They might. I think mainly they need a center, an offensive tackle, maybe just in case Trent Williams retires. That's always a possibility. Do you think the Niners are scouting QBs? I think the Niners are always scouting QBs. I think the Niners are looking at every position. But I think they believe they have their quarterback. So don't know how in depth they're scouting the quarterback position, but I do know that they're looking at the quarterbacks. I mean, it would kind of be irresponsible if you're drafting in the top 15, top 10 potentially. So the Niners have the ability to get into the top 10. If you're not evaluating quarterbacks in that range, then you're doing something wrong because you shouldn't be drafting in the top 10 yearly, or you shouldn't want to. And if you're drafting top 10 and you have the ability to get a quarterback who you think is an upgrade and you don't have the answers, you don't know who he is, I think that's a mistake. I think you scout every position going into this draft, into every draft, because you never know what you may land. For example, if a player drops to their spot that they didn't think, and they don't have questions on him, they don't have the character questions on him, they don't have who he is as a person and stuff like that, and you draft them and it ends up being a Reuben Foster type player, then it was your fault because you didn't really scout the player. So I think that's something that I always go into when the season comes, draft season comes. You should be scouting every position, no matter who it is. Now, I don't think the Niners are looking for a quarterback, but you should be scouting every position. Maybe we can get a free agent. Hopefully they get some free agents. Hopefully they look at defensive tackles who can stop the run. This draft class has a lot of defensive tackles to stop the run. The boombox entrance is getting old. I think you got to earn that boombox entrance. That's just me personally. Positive moving forward for sure is I 100% agree. The rookie class has been phenomenal. Phenomenal. Breaking news: Hensley just unfollowed Clutch Sports. Wait, what? What are you talking about? It's from earlier because we were streaming together. I'm confused. But me and Hensley are boys, so I don't know what you're talking about. trade picks and Ayuk for Jefferson. That's not happening. But going back to some positives, right? Moving forward. Hopefully you have the same defensive coordinator for some continuity. I think he's been good the last 2 games. That's a positive going forward. You have a good quarterback going forward. Even though I don't think he's good enough, he's good. Defensive linemen, Evan Anderson, some of those guys, like guys I named, Renardo Green, Denomina Lenore, Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, Mustafa. Those are positive. Like you have the structure to build around. I think that's something that is being overlooked with the 49ers. They have the structure to build around. And I think at the end of the day, you have to go in with the retool, rebuild mode and get the best players available and build around what you already have. So I think that's something that I'm excited about is there's a structure there. It's not like it's 2017 when the Niners came to an organization, John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, and there was nothing there, right? There was literally nothing. Like they gutted from the ground up. So I'm excited about that to see what they can do. I know this is a question you've been asking for a couple of times, so I'm going to answer it for you. So when I watch Drew Alar, there's a couple of guys that come to mind. And I don't like to put comps on players. I don't really think putting a comp on a player is great. Like it's because you're essentially saying they have similar traits or they have abilities that this player can do, but the whole player isn't that player. So a lot of times, like when I'm giving a comp on a player, it's usually like, oh, it's this player and this player, or this, he has attributes of this. But when I watch Drew Alar, there's a couple of players that come to mind. And it's weird when I watch him because he gives me Matthew Stafford vibes in the sense of he's the pocket style of quarterback. He has the big arm. It's inconsistent, right? It's up and down there sometimes. Obviously, he's a prospect who needs to develop a little bit more. But then he also, too, when you're watching him, he makes Josh Allen, Justin Herbert like throws with the arm strength where he's scrambling, he's getting hit, about to get sacked, and he's throwing a touchdown. Like those are uncoachable things that pop out in terms of like the arm talent, the just natural talent that the quarterback has. Now, I'm not saying like the Josh Allen, like the mobile or the athlete, but he has like some of those attributes where he's capable of just slinging it like at will, just 1 foot. We saw it the last game he played, some of the ups and downs, right? We saw some of the Stafford-like throws. We saw some of the Justin Herbert, Josh Allen type throws where he's getting hit, or the one where he stepped up off 1 foot and threw a laser on like 3rd and 15 to get the first down. The one where he's getting sacked on 4th down and throws a touchdown on his back foot because he's getting sacked. Like those are the stuff that I see. But then when you look at it, it's also he has a lot to develop still. His feet still need developing. He needs to marry his feet to his mind. He's a smart quarterback. I like how he goes to the line of scrimmage and calling out who's Mike, who's what, doing a lot at the line of scrimmage. I like how Penn State gives him that opportunity. He doesn't have a great receiving core. Their offensive coordinator is not great, so he's asked to do a lot there. I like that from a young quarterback. Doesn't really turn the ball over drastically. Now, this year, I want to say his turnover-worthy plays were extremely low, like 1% or something drastic. It was like it's the best in college football right now, I believe, this year. So when you look at that, like that's something that's like, damn, like that's impressive to see a quarterback who's young and growing not turn the ball over, have the turnover-worthy plays. Now, he had this 2023, 25 to 2 interceptions, 25 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 21 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. But those turnover-worthy plays outside of those interceptions are down. That's who I think kind of a mixture of those guys. But he has the talent. He needs a coach who's going to be willing to put him under center, go play action, allow him to be himself to start. If not, sit him for a year, get his feet right, and then he's gonna be a good quarterback. I think he's gonna be a good quarterback in the league. He has too much talent to not be successful in the right environment with the right coaching staff. The issue is if Drew Allard goes to which team is out there that needs a quarterback? If he goes to the Raiders and they're asking him to do too much right away, he's not going to look good, right? Like he needs a run game and he needs a coach who's going to help him out a little bit. That's just what I see. So, like for me, I think he would do well in a Kyle Shanahan system with Kyle Shanahan. Coach who wants to run the ball and a coach who wants to go play action. He's going to give you those off-script plays. He's going to give you the big arm talent to make certain throws. That's what I see right now. I'm excited to see him play against SMU and try to make a run in the college football playoffs. I think he does enter the draft this year. I'd be shocked if he doesn't, especially in a weak class with the traits that he has. And he's played 2 full seasons in the Big Ten. Scouts see that. They know he's played 2 years. They know what he can possibly be. He's obviously played. He's thrown the ball 773 times in his career, and that's not. He still has a full game, possibly 2 to play. He's played in 26. He started in 26 games over the last 2 years. Played in 10 games his freshman year. So there's a lot going for him, but going back to the Niners stuff. Good question. I know you've been asking me that on Twitter, and I told you I'd answer that for you on the next show that you were tuned into. Sick of losing every week to Purdue. So this is a great question. I know a lot of people were high on Nugent. I got to watch Nugent live often when I was covering Stanford. A really good player. He goes to Michigan after Stanford. His issue is his length and strength. Really good player though. I like that he's on the practice squad because I want him around. Maybe he's your backup center next year. But I don't think he's a starter in the NFL. I wanted the Niners to really take Bo Limmer out of Arkansas last year. He ends up going to the Rams. I believe he's been starting. I could be mistaken if he's starting still, but he's been playing he played really well for the Rams in his starts. Actually, his week 15 grade, see if he started. So on December 9th, just a couple of days ago, the lowest pressure rates allowed by rookie offensive linemen in week 14, Bo Limmer was at 0%, 30 pass snaps, 0 pressures. I I was hammering the table, yelling on a live when the 49ers were on the clock, take Bo Limmer, take Bo Limmer. They didn't. Now they're looking for a center. Frazier would have been awesome. I'll start getting into more draft work later. Like in terms of like on the show, I have a lot of draft work I've done. My wife hates me for it. Watch a lot of film, a lot of college films. She hates me for it. She actually loves me, but it's all good. Positives moving forward on the offensive side. I think Jacob Cowley's a positive. I think they got to start letting him hit the field, man. You got to let him go in terms of let him run routes and do stuff. I think Isaac Guerendo's been a positive this year. Even though last game didn't really do much, I think he's been a positive. It looks better than at least Ty Davis-Price and Trey Sermon and those guys that the Niners have drafted in the past at the running back position. Jawan Jennings will be back. Those are like just looking at the man. Like the season's over. Let's look at some of the positives, right? Not just necessarily pure negative stuff. Because obviously we could sit here and we could talk and debate whether Brock Purdy is worth $60 million, whether he's worth $50 million. But what are we looking for in terms of where do the Niners build from here? I think the Niners need to build the trenches. And when I look at it, I know a lot of people are like, oh, the Niners need to heavily draft offensive linemen. I disagree in a way. Because when I'm looking at the 49ers offensive line, Trent Williams, if he doesn't retire, he's back. You have your left tackle of the future. The left guard, it's likely going to be Spencer Burford or Ben Bartch. Both of them played well in spot starts. Center, you drastically need. Left guard, center, I would say are needs. Center, mainly that's like your biggest need. Left guard, you have guys who have played and started well. Spencer Burford wasn't terrible last year at right guard. He could be a starting level guard, left guard. Then you have guys like Puny. He's there for the next 3 years. He's probably starting in the next 3 years. Gonna make Pro Bowls. He's been that good. Then you have Colton McKivitz. He's been starting worthy this year. Nothing great. Has been terrible. So looking at it, I think the main two positions, if you can get two positions, it's center and an offensive tackle to develop. I'm not going to overdraft an offensive guard or an offensive tackle because I know people are like, oh, no, they need a center, tackle, and guard. I'm not going to overdraft one of those positions just because I need to overdraft a position, or I need that player. You could, if I'm looking at it, this is what I would do from the Niners. First round, offensive tackle. I think there's a few there. You could get Calvin Banks. You could get ERC from Minnesota. I think Will Campbell goes a little bit earlier. I'm not as high on Will Campbell as everyone else, but I think you could get those two players or two tackles. You could get a tackle in the first round. They probably start right away. That's how good both of those players are. They probably start at right tackle. Can Colton McKivitz move inside? I don't think so. Not sure, but that could be an option at guard. Then even if you decide the guy you take in the first round is not starting, or he is starting, or you take him in the first round and Trent decides to retire, you have your left tackle of the future you just drafted in the first round. You have Colton McKivitz, who's starting worthy. At least he's been starting worthy this year for the 49ers. Then comes third round. In the second round, what I would do is probably take a defensive tackle, really deep defensive tackle class. Or I know some people on the mock drafts, I'm not a big like, oh, this guy's right now in the mock draft, he's going in the second round. He's ranked 50. I don't look at those right now because mock drafts right now, what they're doing is they haven't talked to scouts. They haven't talked to guys at these bowl games in terms of like the Senior Bowl, East-West Shrine Bowl. That's where they usually get where teams have these guys ranked, and that's where we start seeing the mock drafts actually be a little bit more accurate. Jewel R is like ranked 50 right now. So let's say second round, Jewel R is there. I take Jewel R. I think he has the talent, the upside. If he's there in the second, he won't be. But if he's there, I take him. If not, looking at a defensive tackle or an edge rusher. The only other edge rusher I'm thinking in the first round, James Pierce. I think he's a phenomenal player. I think he might be there in that range. You could probably go there. So looking at that, that's something the Niners could do. Now you have your front seven on both sides being much better. You have your offensive line being, whether it's, I think Trent doesn't retire. Hopefully he doesn't. But it would be Trent, Burford, drafting a center or trading for one or getting a free agent. But I think center could possibly be taken in the second round too. So you could go tackle center. But I wouldn't really, there's no really centers this year that I'm taking in that second or third round. I'd rather just wait and get a Jake Majors in the fourth out of Texas. Like that to me, I think he's a no-brainer to take in the fourth round for the 49ers. So you could go about it that way, and I think that's definitely what they should do is tackle, center are priorities. Because you need to start developing someone behind Trent, especially if Trent retires. Guards, I think Burford could play left guard, Puny play right. Colton McKivitz could play at right tackle if this guy you draft has to play left tackle, and then you have a swing tackle for McKivitz. I think the Niners are in a solid position moving forward. Now the rest of the league's going to get better. That's for sure. The Rams are going to get better. Seattle's going to get better under Mike McDaniel for the second year. Arizona's going to get better. They're a really young team. But a positive moving forward is take a look at the 49ers schedule on paper next year. I took a look at it earlier today. I'm like just trying to figure out where the 49ers are playing, who the 49ers where they could possibly be. Just taking a look at their schedule. They play Houston, tough game. Colts, interesting team. Saints, probably going to be in a blow-up rebuild. They play Atlanta. They might have a young quarterback playing, Michael Penix. Carolina, Are they good? Are they not? Jacksonville, been a disaster this year. Tennessee, been a disaster this year. They may have a rookie starting for them next year. Tampa Bay, solid team. And then you have the NFC North team. You have an NFC East team. Pretty favorable schedule playing. And then you also have, like, obviously the division games. But it's pretty favorable schedule for the 49ers in terms of some of the teams they have to play. So it's like looking at the positives. That's a good thing looking forward, right? Like, it's something we can look forward to. They do play Tampa again. They play that whole division, I believe. Believe they play the whole NFC South. Because they play the Saints, Atlanta, Carolina, and Tampa Bay. So they play a whole division. So it goes based off of division, and then you play the same. So the fourth ranked team, I believe, in the NFC East, the fourth ranked team in the NFC North, I believe. They believe that's how it goes. But man, tough loss for the 49ers. Ends their season. There is no drama. There is no playoffs. There's no drama brewing around the 49ers. I don't believe there is. The only drama is De'Vondre Campbell. He's kicking rocks. The 49ers getting rid of him. We don't got to worry about that. But besides that, the main things are, is Brock Purdy the answer at quarterback? That's to be determined. The Niners probably think he is. I don't think he's the answer. I mean, I think he's a good quarterback, not good enough. I want to pay him elite level money. That's a different topic for a different day. The Niners still have a lot of talent on their team to build around and to retool around. It's just a matter of who they bring in and how they bring them in. That's it for today's show. Hope everyone has a great rest of their Friday night. Hope you guys enjoy. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and make sure you guys send this to your favorite family member, cousin, uncle, friend. Have a great rest of your night. Peace out.